Do what thou wilt should be the whole of the law. Greater Oz again. Headed from Texas up to Kansas City, Missouri. And I wanted to make another video today. Now this one may be somewhat convoluted, okay? This is a difficult subject to talk about in just a short video, and I'm no Kabbalistic scholar by any means, but I wanted to kind of provide just a brief look at the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life to try to give some type of an introduction to it, okay? Because I think that it's something that a lot of people find difficult. It is difficult, and there are a lot of different ways that it can be used and looked at, so I wanted to talk a little bit about it. Before we get started, hit that subscribe button, like the video, and leave me a comment and let me know what I screw up in this video, okay? Also, join that Patreon, guys. I really appreciate the few people that have joined it so far. Man, it means a lot to me. And so if you're enjoying the content and you want to help support the channel and me going forward, join that Patreon. The link will be in the description below. Alright, so basically all of this magic stuff that we do, okay, all of this ceremony and everything is basically designed from the Tree of Life in the Jewish Kabbalah, okay? So it's important that we at least have a rudimentary understanding of that. It can be a lifetime study. In its Jewish form, you know, there were traditionally a lot of restrictions placed on it. You had to be 40 and you had to have knowledge of all of these different subjects in order to even be allowed to study it, okay? And the Jewish idea behind the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life is that it's a representation of the divine, and it is also at the same time a representation of the soul, okay? And so the idea is that by identifying these patterns and stuff inside of ourselves, we can more directly connect with the divine. That's kind of in a nutshell, okay? There's a whole lot more to it than that. But as magicians, we know the Kabbalah basically as this glyph, the Tree of Life, all right? Now, there are many different ways to divide the tree up. If you could maybe pull up an image of the Tree of Life as you watch this video, it might be helpful, okay? There are many ways that people divide up the Tree of Life. The most common one that I see is like Bria, Asaya, Yechida. These are like ways that people make divisions on the Tree of Life. You've also got the supernal triad, the ruach. You've got these different ways of dividing the spheres up, okay? But basically, what you've got is you've got the top three spheres, Kether, Chokmah, and Binah, okay? These represent divinity, things that the human mind can't really grasp, okay? But you've got especially Kether is this unknowable idea of divine light, okay? And then the two spheres below that, Chokmah and Binah, kind of represent the creative force and the form that constrains that force. So the phallus and the womb, Chokmah and Binah, however you want to pronounce it. I'm not the best at pronouncing all these Jewish words, okay? And then the area below that is where we would see the abyss. That's where the abyss is located. So when you cross the abyss, you're going from the bottom up and you're moving into these more divine ideas of the supernal triad, okay? Below that, the five spheres below that, I would consider the human intellect or the ruach. Now, that's not technically correct. It's usually people divide it in a different way, but that's how I learned it, and so I just kind of have always stuck with that. So don't like quote me on that, those five spheres being called the ruach. It's actually traditionally divided differently than that, okay? And then the two spheres below that, Yesod and Malkuth, are more like dreams or the astral plane manifestation, okay? So you've got manifestation at the bottom, and then dreams or the astral plane above that. And then the 5 spheres, the central 5 spheres are more like the makeup of the mind is the way I look at it. Like you've got, you've got from the top to the bottom, you've got Geburah and Chesed, which are severity and mercy. And then you've got Tifereth in the center, which represents the sun or the holy guardian angel. And then the 2 below that are Hod and Netzach, okay? And those represent emotions, Netzach, and the intellect, Hod, okay? So we use these spheres often as a system of categorization. So when you look at 777, okay, all of those tables, the numbers relate to spheres and or paths on the tree of life, and they contain all of these correspondences. Now when you create a ritual, like say you wanted to create a hex on somebody, you would probably use Geburah because it is the sphere of severity, and there would be like war and fighting, and all of these severe ideas would be contained inside of that sphere. So then you could look into 777 and you could find the type of incense, the color, the demons or angels. You could find all of these things that relate to that specific sphere, and then use those things to construct a ritual. And so this is just a very rudimentary idea of how it's used to construct rituals. If we look at the Gnostic Mass can be mapped on the Tree of Life, specifically the middle pillar, but the children travel up and down the 2 pillars on the side during the ritual. But then you have like the stele is Kether. The altar is kind of in the center of the 3 supernal spheres, okay? You've got the 2 pillars that are Chokmah and Banah, okay? And then the double cube altar is Tifereth. The font is Yesod, and the tomb is Malkuth. So the Gnostic Mass is mapped out on the Tree of Life. So as you can see, this is a way that we create rituals as magicians. Like when we create our own rituals, we often map them on the Tree of Life and using correspondences from the spheres to represent things, creating a rich symbolism in the ritual to either invoke supernatural forces or to affect the subconscious mind in different ways, depending on what perspective you look at it from. It's important for magicians to at least gain a basic understanding of the Tree of Life as to what the spheres represent, and try to create their own Kabbalah, if you will, by categorizing things in these spheres. And this can be useful in many ways, including creating rituals, okay? So that's just a little bit about the actual glyph, the Tree of Life, all right? But the glyph itself can be also used as a tool for meditation. It can be used for a lot of different things. And you have like two primary different ways of looking at the tree, okay? You have what would be an emanating, like the tree from the top down. And then you have the tree from the bottom up. So if we look at, like, say we want to map out birth on the Tree of Life, we could look at it from the top down and say that conception would be in the supernal triad, and then the soul would go through all these different stages before it is finally born into the real world in Malkuth, which is manifestation in the real world, okay? Or we could look at it from the bottom up and think about spiritual attainment and coming from where we are in Malkuth and trying to travel back up the tree in order to gain enlightenment. And that's kind of what the Thelemic system does in a way, is try to get us up and cross the abyss up into the supernals. The main goal is Tifereth, okay, which is the holy guardian angel. And so Thelema is a very, in my opinion, middle pillar type of philosophy, okay? And so we're always seeking this balance to stay on that middle pillar, on the middle path. And a lot of people want to say it's left-hand path, right-hand path, whatever, and maybe they do or don't really think about this in relation to the tree of life. But in my opinion, Thelema is a very middle path type of philosophy where you're trying to maintain this balance. And so when I think of those central 5 spheres, okay, the goal is to get to Tifereth and then proceed through the abyss into the supernals, okay? In my mind, and this is unorthodox, okay, in my mind, I think of these 5 spheres as kind of the real place that you find balance, okay? And in my mind, they're like all spinning around each other like a gyroscope or something. And the idea is to try to get in the middle of those, and by balancing them all. So if you look at people, okay, in the community, people all over the place, you will see these imbalances. And we just talked a lot about balance in that last video. So this is something that I wanted to touch on, okay? You see people all the time who are imbalanced, and you can tell by the way they interact with the world that they are not in balance, and they are imbalanced, okay? And a lot of times, if you have an understanding of these central 5 spheres, there are a lot of times that you can visibly tell the way that they're unbalanced. Like someone may be really emotional, but not, focusing at all on facts and reason. And so that person, I would say, is kind of leaning too much toward Netzach and needs to incorporate Hod in order to balance that out. And the same thing with Geburah and Chesed. A person may be really severe and abrasive, and they need to incorporate more of the Chesed or the mercy to balance that out. And in my opinion, becoming a really balanced person is a product of balancing those 4 outer spheres to try to come to a place where you're able to stay in the middle without getting sucked down into one of those spheres. And I see, that one term that I've used over the years is Hodian. I see a lot of Thelemites who I have affectionately referred to as Hodians. They're stuck in Hod. They're all about just the books and the reading and the over-analyzing everything, and Hod is all about the intellect. And so I see a lot of people that seem to get sucked down into that sphere and have a hard time integrating its opposite and balancing all of those spheres. That's just an example of the things that I see, okay? But that's most of what I wanted to say about the Tree of Life. I just wanted to kind of try to give some kind of a basic understanding to those of you who don't have it. Another thing about the Kabbalah, the Jewish mysticism, okay, there's a lot to it. I don't claim to understand it fully. But there's something interesting that I wanted to point out that has to do with understanding Crowley's writings. Like, Crowley's writings have a lot of different layers of meaning to them. And there are a lot of people who have a hard time breaking through those layers, and it takes, in some cases, many years to come to different realizations that start to bring all of it together, okay? And the Jews have an idea of what they call the Pardes, I believe it is, the orchard, okay? And what it is different layers of meaning within biblical texts or the Torah, and so, I often think about Crowley's writings in this way. Crowley was intimately familiar with all of this literature, Jewish and Christian literature, okay? And this idea of the orchard is like, I don't remember the names of them. There are some Hebrew names that represent the different layers, but they say that there are 4 layers of understanding to these texts, okay? And the first layer is what the text actually says, the apparent meaning of the words themselves, okay? And that's something that I've talked about in the Oz Speak series, that it's enough in the beginning for you to just absorb the words that are being said, okay? But that there are other meanings, second layer is the allegorical meaning, so that it like, the words say a certain thing that you understand, but they hint towards another thing that is similar, and that may help you gain a deeper understanding of it, okay? And then there's a third layer, and the third layer is the using that particular passage to integrate it into your life to cause some kind of a change in your character, or, you know, to I don't know, to learn multiple lessons from that verse. And that to me is kind of like those light bulb moments when you're something happens and then you're like, oh, that's you know, the slave shall serve, or whatever, you know, the verse may be. You know, that's kind of that third layer of meaning, where you find these different ways that it relates to your life, and then these light bulbs come on, and you start to gain a deeper understanding of that verse, okay? And then the fourth layer is the secret embedded in the verse. And there's many times throughout Crowley's writings that this little 4-layer system of the orchard that's used by Jewish mystics is useful. It's useful to understand that there are multiple layers of meanings in particularly the Class A documents, and you know, in many places otherwise throughout Crowley's works. I don't know, that's just it's kind of a tangent, but it's something that I wanted to mention. So guys, I hope this was useful to you. I know it's a really deep topic, and there's a whole lot to the Kabbalah, and personally I mostly use it for a system of categorization, and for like trying to understand the inner workings of the human. You know, you can map the human out on the tree of life, and if you believe in the supernatural, those parallels that are drawn can be also related to the divine, and therefore give an individual a more complete understanding of divinity, of the universe, of the world. And I think that it's useful, again, from a spiritual or non-spiritual perspective, but it's a super interesting topic. And one more thing, you know, another thing that the Jewish mystics talk about is how, you know, I said before that they restricted people from learning it until they were 40 years old and had all this knowledge. They wanted people to be somewhat balanced before they jumped into these secret teachings, okay? And we often see people who go off the rails with Kabbalah, and you'll see EO 131 refer to it as Kabbalah, because people will just get, you know, go off the rails with Gematria and Kabbalah and kind of miss the point. And so you should try to take a rational perspective of it and not give too much weight to the connections you find, at least not outwardly. You know, these things that you find may be more meaningful to you than they are to others, and pushing your perspective out there as being something important, you know, people are going to probably look at you like you're crazy. It's more something for the individual. And I think I kind of got off track there, but I hope that was helpful for you guys. I hope I didn't confuse you. Kabbalah can be very confusing, but I just wanted to kind of give my ideas about it and just give you a basic rundown, so that maybe you'll find some rabbit holes to then run down on your own and learn more. So yeah, I hope that was helpful for you. So again, hit that subscribe button, guys, and sign up for that Patreon. Support the channel. Thank you so much to the people who have signed up already.